In 1976, one company in Battle Creek, Michigan, controlled 43% of every single box of cereal sold in America. Walk into any grocery store that year and you'd see something extraordinary. Corn Flakes, Frosted Flakes, Rice Krispies, Fruit Loops, Special K, Raisin Bran. Row after row after row, all bearing the same signature, all coming from the same place. A signature that had been there since 1906. The Kellogg Company wasn't just selling cereal, it was defining what millions of American families ate for breakfast, every single day. By the mid-70s, the factories were running 24 hours. The headquarters employed thousands. Revenue had grown for 42 consecutive years. The stock paid dividends that climbed for 36 straight years. This wasn't a business, this was a dynasty. Drive through Battle Creek and you could smell the cereal cooking from miles away. The aroma of toasted corn hung over the entire city like a promise. This was the town where breakfast began, where Will Keith Kellogg had turned a sanitarium accident into an American empire. Then something went catastrophically wrong. Today, the Kellogg Company that dominated American breakfast for nearly a century doesn't exist anymore, not as one company, not as an independent force. In 2023, it split itself into pieces. 2 years later, both pieces were sold. Mars bought one for $36 billion. Ferrero bought the other for $3.1 billion. The signature on the box remains. But the empire behind it? Gone. So, how does a company that survived the Great Depression, 2 world wars, and 100 years of competition simply disappear? This is the story of 3 chapters. The meteoric rise of a man who changed breakfast forever, the golden age when Kellogg dominated the American table, and the slow, grinding collapse that nobody saw coming until it was too late. Welcome inside the cereal factory where America learned to eat breakfast and where an empire built on flakes of corn crumbled into dust. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. These deep dives into American business history take serious research, and your support helps us keep bringing you these stories. 1894. Battle Creek, Michigan. In the basement laboratory of the Battle Creek Sanitarium, Will Keith Kellogg stands hunched over a set of steel rollers. He's 34 years old. Paid $87 a month. He's been working for his older brother for 14 years now, performing every thankless task at the health resort. Bookkeeper, cashier, janitor, whatever Dr. John Harvey Kellogg demands. Tonight, Will is exhausted. He's been experimenting with wheat dough again, trying to create a digestible bread substitute for the sanitarium patients who follow strict vegetarian diets. The batch of boiled wheat he'd prepared earlier sits forgotten on the counter. An emergency called both brothers away. By the time Will returns, the wheat has been sitting for hours, maybe a full day. It's gone stale, dried out completely. Any other man would have thrown it away. But Will Kellogg doesn't waste anything. He sends the dried wheat through the rollers anyway. What comes out changes everything. Instead of sheets of dough, the rollers produce perfect, delicate flakes. Each grain of wheat emerges as a thin, crispy piece. Will takes the flakes and bakes them. Then, he tries something nobody had thought to do before. He pours cold milk over them. They're delicious. For the first time in his life, Will Keith Kellogg has discovered something his brilliant, domineering brother hasn't. But here's the thing. This isn't just about wheat. Within weeks, Will experiments with corn. The corn flakes are even better. Crunchier, more flavorful, perfect. The sanitarium patients love them. Soon they're writing letters begging for boxes to take home. Hundreds of requests pour in. John Kellogg sees the flakes as therapy, nothing more. But Will? Will sees something bigger. Then C.W. Post shows up. Post is a patient at the sanitarium, a businessman. He watches Will make the flakes. John Kellogg allows anyone to observe the process because he has no interest in commercializing it. Post takes notes. Careful notes. In 1897, Post launches the Postum Cereal Company. He makes his own version of the flakes. Within years, he's a millionaire. Will Kellogg watches from the sanitarium basement as another man gets rich off the process he perfected. His brother pays him the same miserable salary, expects him to work 100-hour weeks, treats him like hired help. It's 1897. Will is 37 years old. He's worked for John for 17 years. He's had enough, but he needs to wait. He needs to be strategic. Because when Will Keith Kellogg finally makes his move, he's going to bury everyone, including his own brother. February 19, 1906. Battle Creek, Michigan. Will Keith Kellogg, now 46 years old, walks out of the Battle Creek Sanitarium for the last time as an employee. He's filed the paperwork, secured investors, negotiated with his brother to buy the rights to make Corn Flakes commercially. The price? John gets royalties. Will gets freedom. The Battle Creek Toasted Corn Flake Company opens with 44 employees. Will mortgages everything he owns. He's starting from nothing. No, worse than nothing. He's starting against 42 other cereal companies that have already sprouted up in Battle Creek. The town has become ground zero for the breakfast cereal gold rush. Every entrepreneur in Michigan wants to copy what the Kellogg brothers created, but Will has something none of them have: a ruthless understanding of business, and a personal vendetta that burns like rocket fuel. He starts with the product. Will adds sugar to his cornflakes. Just a touch. John Kellogg is horrified. "You're corrupting the purity of the grain," John tells him. Will doesn't care. The sugar makes the cereal taste better. Better taste means more sales. It's that simple. Then Will does something revolutionary. He spends money on advertising. Lots of money. More than any food company in America has ever spent. He builds massive electric billboards in cities across the country. He commissions Norman Rockwell to design his cereal boxes. He creates promotions that are impossible to ignore. In 1909, he offers customers a free sample if they wink at the grocer. Sales in New York City increase by 15 times in 1 year. By 1909, just 3 years after opening, Will's company is producing 120,000 cases of cornflakes daily. John Kellogg watches his younger brother's success with growing resentment. In 1906, the same year Will launches his company, John sues him. The charge? Unauthorized use of the Kellogg name. John argues that he's the famous doctor, the internationally known health reformer. The name belongs to him. The lawsuit drags on for years. It's bitter. Personal. Brothers who once worked side by side now sit in courtrooms glaring at each other across mahogany tables. In December 1920, the Michigan Supreme Court delivers its ruling. Will Keith Kellogg wins. Completely. He gets full rights to the Kellogg name in the United States. He'll win international rights the following year after another lawsuit. The brothers never speak again. John dies bitter and resentful. Will builds an empire. Meanwhile, the factory keeps growing. The signature keeps spreading. And America starts eating cereal for breakfast. July 4th, 1907. Battle Creek, Michigan. Fire rips through the main factory building of the Battle Creek Toasted Corn Flake Company. Flames consume the production lines. Smoke chokes the summer sky. Everything Will Kellogg has built in 16 months turns to ash. 6 months later, he has a brand new plant running at full capacity. This is who Will Keith Kellogg is. Relentless. Unbreakable. In 1922, he renames the company to simply the Kellogg Company. By then, he's selling bran flakes, all bran, and his signature corn flakes across the country. The company goes international. Canada in 1914. England in 1922, Australia in 1924. Then the Great Depression hits. 1930. The economy collapses. Companies everywhere cut production. Fireworkers slash advertising budgets. Kellogg does the opposite. He reduces each shift from 8 hours to 6 hours and adds a fourth shift. Now more people have jobs. More families have income. It's not charity. It's strategic. Kellogg understands something his competitors don't. Hungry people still need to eat. And cereal is cheap. While other companies go dark, Kellogg increases his advertising budget. Radio commercials. Magazine spreads. Billboards. The message is simple. Kellogg cereals are affordable, nutritious, and delicious. During the worst economic disaster in American history, Kellogg gains market share. In 1930, the same year the Depression begins, Will creates something else. The WK Cup in Kellogg Foundation. He donates $66 million. That's roughly $1.3 billion in today's money. The foundation will focus on helping children, particularly their health and education. Why children? Because in 1913, Will's grandson Kenneth fell from a second-story window. The boy nearly died. Despite Will's millions, he couldn't find adequate medical care anywhere in southern Michigan. The experience shattered him. He resolved that no family should suffer what his family suffered. But here's what nobody talks about. Will Keith Kellogg is terrible with personal relationships. His first wife dies lonely and isolated. His second marriage ends in estrangement. He fires his own son from the company in 1925. The reason? His son divorced his wife and married an office girl. Will considered it morally unacceptable. Later, he fires his grandson after a lawsuit over a puffed cereal patent. The man who builds hospitals for children can't maintain relationships with his own family. The man who creates jobs for thousands during the Depression treats his executives like disposable parts. By 1938, when Will Kellogg retires, the Kellogg Company has grown for 32 consecutive years. It dominates the American cereal market, and Will is nearly blind from glaucoma. For the last decade of his life, he attends board meetings with a seeing-eye dog. Completely sightless. Still fighting. Still building. He dies in 1951 at age 91. The empire continues without him. 1955. Battle Creek, Michigan. The Kellogg Company launches Special K. It's marketed to adults who want to lose weight. The timing is perfect. Post-war America is becoming health conscious, concerned about calories. Special K promises nutrition without guilt. Within years, it's one of the top-selling cereals in the country. Then comes 1958. Frosted Flakes hits the market. The mascot is Tony the Tiger, a cartoon character who bellows their grit in television commercials. Kids go crazy for it. Parents buy boxes by the dozen. Frosted Flakes becomes iconic. That one product will generate billions in revenue over the next 70 years. This is Kellogg's golden age. The company doesn't just sell cereal. It defines childhood. Snap, crackle, and pop for Rice Krispies. Toucan Sam for Fruit Loops. Diggum Frog for Honey Smacks. These aren't just mascots, they're cultural touchstones. American children grow up knowing these characters better than they know their neighbors. In 1964, Kellogg launches Pop-Tarts. It's not cereal. It's a toaster pastry. But it fills the same need: quick, convenient breakfast. Pop-Tarts explode in popularity. By the mid-60s, the company is printing money. The numbers tell the story. In 1966, Kellogg holds roughly 40% of the American cereal market. The factories run around the clock. The Battle Creek plant alone employs thousands. The company posts profits every single year. Dividends increase like clockwork. Wall Street analysts call Kellogg the most reliable stock in America. Music. But here's what's happening behind the scenes. Success breeds complacency. Kellogg's executives believe they're invincible. Why wouldn't they? The company has dominated for 60 years. Competitors keep trying and failing to match their marketing power. General Mills makes a run at them. Post tries to innovate. Quaker Oats attempts to carve out market share. None of it matters. Kellogg's stays on top. In 1976, Kellogg's market share peaks at 43%, the highest it will ever reach. The company is a fortress, unassailable, eternal. What Kellogg's executives don't see is the foundation beginning to crack. Small fissures, barely noticeable. In 1972, the Federal Trade Commission sues Kellogg, General Mills, and Post, alleging they've created an oligopoly that stifles competition and costs consumers millions. The lawsuit will drag on for a decade. It will cost Kellogg $10 million in legal fees. More importantly, it will distract management for years. Meanwhile, consumer tastes are shifting. Slowly, quietly. Americans are starting to question sugar, starting to demand healthier options. Starting to wonder if cereal is really the best breakfast after all. Nobody inside Kellogg is paying attention. They're too busy celebrating. Too focused on quarterly earnings. Too certain that what worked for 70 years will work forever. If you're finding this story fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us continue bringing you these deep dives into history. We've got more incredible business stories coming, and your support makes them possible. 1983, Battle Creek, Michigan. Kellogg's market share has dropped to 36.7%. That's down more than 6 percentage points from the peak just 7 years earlier. For a company that has grown almost continuously for 77 years, this is a 5-alarm fire. A Wall Street analyst publishes a report calling Kellogg a fine company that's past its prime. The cereal market, he writes, is mature. Translation, it's dying. The comment sends shockwaves through the industry. Is he right? Has Kellogg missed its moment? The problem is multifaceted. First, Kellogg has been underspending its competitors in marketing and product development. While General Mills pours money into new brands targeting kids, Kellogg sticks with its classics. While Post innovates with health cereals, Kellogg barely adjusts its formulas. Second, the Federal Trade Commission lawsuit has sucked up enormous resources. 10 years of litigation, millions in legal fees, countless hours of executive time spent in depositions and court appearances. The lawsuit doesn't end until 1982, when the Reagan administration drops it. By then, the damage is done. Kellogg has lost its edge. Third, competition is brutal. General Mills targets children with sugary cereals that taste like candy. Their marketing is aggressive, colorful, and everywhere. Quaker Oats positions itself as the healthy alternative. They push oat-based cereals hard, capitalizing on growing health consciousness. Post undercuts everyone on price. But here's the real problem. William Lamothe, Kellogg's chairman, realizes they've been marketing to the wrong demographic. For decades, Kellogg sold cereal to children. Bright boxes, cartoon mascots, sugar-coated flakes. Kids loved it, but kids don't buy groceries. Their parents do. And by the 80s, those parents are baby boomers. Music. Lamothe makes a critical decision. Kellogg pivots hard. Instead of marketing kids' cereals, they start targeting adults aged 25 to 49. They emphasize convenience, nutrition, health benefits. They launch products like Krispies, Nutri-Green biscuits, and Raisin Squares, all positioned as smart choices for busy adults. It works. By 1985, Kellogg reclaims 40% market share. The U.S. cereal market, worth $3.7 billion in 1983, reaches $5.4 billion by 1988. It's growing 3 times faster than the average grocery category. In 1986, Kellogg posts its 30th consecutive dividend increase, its 35th consecutive earnings increase, and its 42nd consecutive sales increase. 42 years of growth without a single down year. It's unprecedented. Wall Street breathes a sigh of relief. Maybe the analyst was wrong. Maybe Kellogg isn't past its prime. Maybe this empire can last forever after all. Except Lamatha and his team have just won a battle. The war is about to get much, much worse. 1992, Battle Creek, Michigan. William Lamoth retires as chairman and CEO. He's led the company through one of its most challenging periods and emerged victorious. His replacement is Arnold Langbo, the president of Kellogg. Langbo inherits a company that's still profitable, still dominant, but facing new headwinds that nobody fully understands yet. The cereal market in the early 90s is under assault from 2 directions. First, the oat bran craze. Health-conscious consumers suddenly want oatmeal, granola, anything made from oats. They believe oats lower cholesterol, prevent heart disease, cure everything short of cancer. General Mills is perfectly positioned. They own Cheerios. They have Honey Nut Cheerios. Their oat-heavy lineup dominates the health segment. Kellogg, they make Corn Flakes, Rice Krispies, Frosted Flakes, all rice and corn. They're late to the oat party. By the time they launch competitive products, the moment has passed. They lose market share to General Mills. Not a lot, but enough to hurt. Second threat, private label store brands. Ralcorp Holdings, a spin-off from Ralston Purina, starts producing generic cereals for grocery chains. Consumers during the early 90s recession realized something shocking. The store brand Corn Flakes taste almost identical to Kellogg's Corn Flakes, but they cost half the price. Maybe less. For the first time in Kellogg's history, price becomes a problem. The company has always commanded premium prices because of its brand strength. Now, families struggling with bills look at the cereal aisle and make a brutal calculation. 25 cents less per box adds up over a year. Multiply that by millions of families. Kellogg bleeds market share. Langbo responds with a re-engineering effort in 1993. The directive is clear. Concentrate on the core business. Cereal. Get back to basics. Stop the distractions. Kellogg divests Mrs. Smith's Frozen Foods. They sell cereal packaging limited in England. They exit their Argentine snack food business. Everything that's not cereal? Gone. The company slims down, refocuses, invests heavily in cereal production and marketing, but then Langbo makes a decision that haunts the company. He raises prices. During a recession, while consumers are already switching to cheaper alternatives. The logic is simple. Maintain margins. If we're selling less volume, we need higher prices to keep profits up. It backfires. In 1994, General Mills cuts prices across their entire cereal line. Kellogg is forced to match. The price war that follows devastates margins industry-wide, but Kellogg gets hurt worse than anyone. They've positioned themselves as premium. When they cut prices, consumers wonder why they were paying more in the first place. Net sales growth slows dramatically. 7% in 1992, 2% in 93, 4% in 94. It's still growth. Barely. But for a company used to posting double-digit gains, this feels like failure. The fortress is crumbling. Nobody inside wants to admit it. Not yet. 2001, Battle Creek, Michigan. Kellogg announces it's acquiring the Keebler Company for $3.87 billion. It's the largest acquisition in Kellogg's history. Keebler makes cookies and crackers. This isn't cereal. This is diversification. This is Kellogg admitting what it refused to admit. A decade earlier, The cereal business alone isn't enough anymore. The logic makes sense on paper. Cereal sales are stagnant. The category is mature. Consumers are eating breakfast on the go, grabbing protein bars, drinking smoothies, buying yogurt, skipping breakfast entirely. Fewer Americans pour milk into a bowl of cereal every morning. The numbers don't lie. So Kellogg looks elsewhere. Keebler brings famous brands, Cheez-It crackers, Townhouse crackers, famous Amos cookies, Keebler Elves. The acquisition makes Kellogg a broader snack company. Not just breakfast, all-day snacking. But here's the problem. Kellogg doesn't know how to run a cookie and cracker business. Their expertise is cereal. Manufacturing cereals, marketing cereals, distributing cereals. Cookies and crackers are different. The supply chains are different. The retailers are different. The profit margins are different. The integration is messy. Over the next few years, Kellogg acquires more companies. Morningstar Farms in the plant-based foods market. Kashi for the health-conscious segment. Bare Naked Granola. In 2012, the big one, Pringles. Kellogg pays Procter & Gamble $2.7 billion for the Potato Crisp brand. With Pringles, Kellogg becomes the world's second-largest snack food company behind PepsiCo. The announcement is met with applause from Wall Street. Finally, Kellogg is diversifying. Finally, they're not just a cereal company. Except diversification brings complexity. Now Kellogg is managing cereal plants, cookie factories, cracker facilities, and potato crisp manufacturing across multiple continents. Each category has its own competitive dynamics. Each requires different expertise. Each faces different consumer trends. Revenue grows. In 2012, Kellogg reports $14.2 billion in net sales. That's up from $6.6 billion in 1995. Growth is happening. The stock performs well. But something is missing. Focus. Identity. The company that once stood for one thing, breakfast cereal, now stands for everything. And when a company stands for everything, it stands for nothing. Behind the scenes, executives are spread thin. Too many brands. Too many categories. Too many markets. Nobody's watching the core business closely enough. And the core business, the cereal that built this empire, continues its slow, inexorable decline. By 2015, Kellogg's cereal market share in the United States has fallen below 30%. The dominance is gone. The competitors have caught up. Private labels have carved out permanent space. And consumers? They're eating less cereal than ever. The end is beginning. Most people just don't see it yet. October 5th, 2021. 4 locations across America. 1,400 workers walk off the job simultaneously. Battle Creek, Michigan. Omaha, Nebraska. Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Memphis, Tennessee. Every single cereal production plant Kellogg operates in the United States. Silent. Dark. Empty. It's the first strike at the Battle Creek plant since 1972. The first at Lancaster since 1985. The workers are represented by the Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco Workers, and Grain Millers International Union. Their demands are simple. Fair wages, reasonable hours, basic respect. Here's what they're fighting against: a 2-tier wage system. Legacy workers, hired before 2015, make $35 an hour. New workers make $22 an hour for the exact same job. Same work. Different pay. Forever. The new workers will never catch up. They'll never reach legacy status under the current contract. It gets worse. During the pandemic, these workers kept the factories running. While Americans panicked and bought out grocery stores, Kellogg's workers showed up. Some worked 80-hour weeks. Some worked 120 days straight without a single day off. One worker in Battle Creek told reporters he worked 16-hour shifts, 7 days a week, for months. the company made $480 million in profit just in the third quarter of 2021. Sales were up 2% from the previous year. The executives got bonuses. The shareholders got dividends. The workers, they got mandatory overtime and a contract proposal that made the two-tier system permanent. Music. The strike lasts 77 days. During that time, Kellogg brings in replacement workers. They house them at a local DoubleTree hotel, pay them $30 an hour plus a $75 per diem, more than they're paying the permanent workers they're replacing. On December 7, 2021, after workers reject a tentative agreement, Kellogg announces something stunning. They're going to permanently replace all 1,400 striking workers. All of them. Fire the entire unionized workforce and hire new people. The backlash is immediate. President Biden issues a statement calling it deeply troubling. Senator Bernie Sanders visits the picket line in Battle Creek. Social media explodes. People call for boycotts. The company's reputation takes a beating. On December 21, 2021, after another negotiation, workers approve a new 5-year contract. The strike ends. Workers keep their jobs. They get wage increases, cost of living adjustments, better benefits. It's a victory, kind of. But here's what the strike reveals. The relationship between Kellogg and its workers is broken. The trust is gone. The company that Will Keith Kellogg built by creating jobs during the Depression now fights its own employees over $15 an hour. Something fundamental is changed. And it can't be fixed with a new contract. The damage runs too deep. June 21, 2022. Chicago, Illinois. Steve Cahilling, chairman and CEO of Kellogg, makes an announcement that shocks the food industry. The company is splitting into 3 separate businesses. Cereal, snacks, plant-based foods. The logic is brutal in its honesty. These businesses don't belong together anymore. The cereal division is shrinking. The snack division is growing. The plant-based division is struggling. Lumping them together makes no sense. Investors can't properly value a conglomerate this messy. Wall Street demands clarity. Cahane is giving it to them. The plan: split the North American cereal business into its own company. It will keep the Kellogg name. W.K. Kellogg Company. Everything else. The global snacking business, international cereal, frozen foods, becomes Kellanova. That's where the growth is. That's where the future lies. On October 2, 2023, at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time, the split becomes official. Kellogg Company, 117 years old, ceases to exist. In its place, 2 companies, each with different strategies, different leadership, different futures. Corn Flakes, Frosted Flakes, Fruit Loops, Rice Krispies, Special K, Raisin Bran. The iconic brands that built the empire. Expected annual revenue, $2.7 billion. Headquarters, Battle Creek, Michigan. Kellanova gets everything else: Pringles, Cheez-It, Pop-Tarts, Eggo, RX Bar, Morningstar Farms, and all international cereal operations. Expected annual revenue, $13.5 billion. Headquarters, Chicago, Illinois. Wall Street loves it. The stocks rise. Analysts praise the move as long overdue. Finally, Kellogg is admitting what everyone knew. The cereal business is dying. Separate it from the healthy businesses. Let each find its own path. But here's the truth behind the split. It's not a growth strategy. It's a liquidation strategy. By splitting the businesses, Kellogg makes each piece easier to sell, easier to acquire conglomerates. Gary Pilnick, CEO of W.K. Kellogg Co., puts on a brave face. We're excited about the prospects. He says in press releases, we'll invest in our iconic brands. We'll innovate. We'll grow. Nobody believes him. The cereal business has been shrinking for years. Americans are eating fewer bowls of cereal than at any time since the 1970s. The category is in permanent decline. Greek yogurt has replaced cereal. Protein bars have replaced cereal. Egg sandwiches from fast food chains have replaced cereal. Egg sandwiches from fast food chains have replaced cereal. Will Kellogg Co. launches as an independent public company in October 2023. It starts with $500 million in debt. Its stock trades on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol KLG. It will remain independent for less than 2 years. We're halfway through this incredible story. If you're enjoying it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support means everything. The final chapters get even more dramatic, so stick around to see how this empire finally collapsed. July 10th, 2025. Luxembourg and Battle Creek. Ferrero Group, the Italian confectionery giant, announces it's acquiring W.K. Kellogg Co. for $23 per share. Total price, $3.1 billion. The stock jumps 30% in one day. Shareholders celebrate. After all, W.K. Kellogg has been struggling since day one of independence. First half of 2025, sales down 7.5%. The company is hemorrhaging money. The debt is crushing. Ferrero isn't just offering a buyout, they're offering a lifeline. For Ferrero, the acquisition makes strategic sense. They're known for Nutella, Ferrero Rocher, Cortacunda, chocolates, all desserts and candy. Now they want breakfast. The Kellogg cereal brands give them that: Frosted Flakes, Fruit Loops, Rice Krispies, Special K. Instant credibility in the breakfast aisle. The deal includes all manufacturing facilities in North America, all the workers, all the brands. Ferrero promises to invest in the business, to grow the brands, to keep Battle Creek as the headquarters for North American cereal operations. On September 19, 2025, W.K. Kellogg shareholders vote on the acquisition. 93% vote yes. It's a landslide. Nobody wants to keep fighting in a dying category. Better to take the cash and move on. On September 26, 2025, the deal closes. W.K. Kellogg Co. ceases trading on the New York Stock Exchange. After less than 2 years as an independent company, it becomes a wholly owned subsidiary of Ferrero. The empire that Will Keith Kellogg built in 1906 no longer exists as an American company. Meanwhile, Kellanova faces its own reckoning. August 14, 2024. Mars Incorporated announces it's acquiring Kellanova for $83.50 per share. Total price, $36 billion. It's one of the largest food industry acquisitions in history, bigger than anything since Kraft Heinz in 2015. Mars already owns M&M's, Snickers, Twix, Skittles. Now they're getting Pringles, Cheez-It, Pop-Tarts, Eggo, and all of Kellogg's international cereal brands. The European Commission investigates. 28 separate regulatory approvals are needed across multiple countries. Mars commits to invest €1 billion into European operations. They promise no anti-competitive behavior. No price increases for consumers. On December 8, 2025, the European Commission gives final approval. On December 11, 2025, the deal closes. Kellanova shareholders receive their cash. The stock is delisted. Mars takes over. Andrew Clark, global president of Mars Snacking, calls it a transformative moment. He talks about shaping the future of snacking, about bringing together iconic brands, about unlocking innovation. What he doesn't say: this is the end. The Kellogg Company that dominated American breakfast for 117 years is gone. Absorbed. Divided. Sold for parts. The signature on the cereal box remains. But the company behind it? Completely, utterly, irreversibly gone. Let's go back 20 years earlier. 25. If you were paying attention, you could have seen this coming. The signs were everywhere. American cereal consumption had peaked in the 1990s. By 2005, per capita consumption was declining, not dramatically, just a steady, consistent drop, 1% here, 2% there. Executives dismissed it. Temporary trend. Market correction. They'd seen dips before. They always recovered. Except this time was different. This time the decline never stopped. What changed? Everything. The entire structure of American eating habits. First, breakfast itself became optional. Younger Americans started skipping it entirely. The old advice that breakfast is the most important meal of the day stopped resonating. People drank coffee and went straight to lunch. Or they grabbed something quick on the way to work. Second, when people did eat breakfast, they wanted protein. Greek yogurt exploded in popularity. Egg sandwiches from McDonald's and Starbucks became routine. Protein bars positioned as meal replacements. Smoothies. Avocado toast. None of these involved cereal. Third, health concerns. Parents started reading nutrition labels. They realized their healthy Frosted Flakes had as much sugar as candy. The backlash was brutal. Kellogg tried reformulating, reducing sugar, adding whole grains. Nothing worked. The perception was set. Cereal equals junk food. Fourth, price competition. Store brands got good. Really good. Families realized they couldn't tell the difference between Kellogg's Corn Flakes and the store version that cost 40% less. Brand loyalty evaporated when budgets tightened. Fifth, convenience died. Cereal requires milk. Milk spoils. You need a bowl, a spoon, a place to sit. Modern Americans don't have time for that. They want grab and go. They want food they can eat in the car, in the office, while walking. Cereal doesn't fit that lifestyle. Kellogg executives knew all this. They had the data. They saw the trends. So why didn't they adapt faster? Why didn't they pivot before it was too late? Because they were trapped by their own success. Cereal had made them rich for 100 years. The factories were built for cereal. The distribution was optimized for cereal. The expertise was in cereal. Pivoting meant admitting that their core business was dying. It meant writing off billions in infrastructure. It meant acknowledging that everything Will Keith Kellogg built was becoming obsolete. Nobody wants to be the executive who admits that on their watch. So they delayed. They diversified. They acquired other businesses. They tried to grow around the problem rather than solving it. By the time they split the company in 2023, it was too late. The cereal business was unsalvageable as a standalone entity. The only option left was to sell. There's another factor. One that's harder to quantify but impossible to ignore. Cereal stopped being culturally relevant. Think about it. In the 1960s and 70s, Saturday morning cartoons were sponsored by cereal companies. Kids watched TV and saw Tony the Tiger telling them Frosted Flakes were great. They saw Toucan Sam leaving them to Fruit Loops. They begged their parents to buy specific cereals based on what they saw on TV. That entire ecosystem collapsed. First, DVRs let families skip commercials. Then, streaming services eliminated commercials entirely. Kids stopped watching network television. They watched YouTube, Netflix, TikTok, platforms where Kellogg had no presence. No reach, no cultural footprint. The mascots became irrelevant. Kids in 2020 don't know who Snap, Crackle, and Pop are. They don't care about Dig 'Em Frog. These characters were created for a different generation, a different medium, a different America. Meanwhile, new brands understood digital marketing. They built followings on Instagram. They created viral TikTok content. They partnered with influencers. They spoke the language of modern consumers. Kellogg, they bought traditional TV ads and wondered why nobody was paying attention. Food culture shifted too. 20 years ago, processed foods were fine, normal, expected. Now, consumers want fresh, organic, local, minimally processed, natural ingredients. Cereal, by definition, is processed. It's manufactured in a factory. It sits in a box for months. Nothing about it screams fresh or healthy. The rise of food documentaries didn't help. Films about the obesity epidemic, about sugar addiction, about the food industry's manipulation of consumers. Cereal companies got dragged through the mud, portrayed as villains pushing sugar onto children. Whether fair or not, the damage was done. Social media amplified every criticism. A mom blogger writes about hidden sugar in cereals. It goes viral. Thousands of parents vow to stop buying cereal. A nutritionist posts about better breakfast options. Millions see it. Share it. Believe it. Kellogg tried to respond. They launched better-for-you cereals. They reduced sugar. They added protein. They marketed whole grains. None of it mattered. The cultural moment had passed. Here's the brutal truth. Consumer preferences are unstoppable. When culture shifts, companies can either adapt or die. Kellogg tried to adapt. They diversified in the snacks. They acquired growing brands. They split the company. But you can't force people to eat cereal if they don't want cereal. By 2025, the average American ate 8 pounds of cereal per year. In 1990, it was 12 pounds. That 4-pound difference, multiplied across 330 million Americans, represents billions in lost revenue. Revenue that's never coming back. The factory in Battle Creek still operates. The machines still run. The workers still show up. But they're making cereal for a country that's moved on. For a generation that barely remembers what their brand stood for. December 11th, 2025. The deals close. Ferrero owns W.K. Kellogg Company. Mars owns Kellanova. The Kellogg Company, as an independent entity, has ceased to exist 119 years after Will Keith Kellogg walked out of his brother's sanitarium and bet everything on Corn Flakes. His empire is dismantled. Sold. Absorbed into foreign conglomerates. The total price for both pieces? $39.1 billion. That's what the Kellogg empire was worth at the end. Will Keith Kellogg himself left a fortune estimated at $66 million to his foundation in 1951. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $900 million today. The company he built sold for 43 times that amount. But here's the thing. Those billions didn't go to Kellogg. They went to shareholders. Investors who held the stock. Hedge funds. Retirement accounts. The money scattered to the four winds. The company itself? Gone. What remains? The brands, for now. Corn Flakes still bear the Kellogg signature. Frosted Flakes still feature Tony the Tiger. The recipes haven't changed. The boxes look familiar, but the soul of the company, the identity, the independence, the American ownership, all of that disappeared. Battle Creek, Michigan, the town that smelled like cereal for over a century, now smells like a regular town. The factories still operate, but they're owned by Ferrero now. The headquarters building stands, but the strategic decisions are made in Luxembourg. In McLean, Virginia. Anywhere but Battle Creek. The workers who went on strike in 2000 and 2021, they still show up to work. Same jobs. Different owners. Different future. They wonder how long Ferrero will keep the plants running in America. How long before production shifts overseas? How long before automation eliminates more jobs? Nobody knows. Nobody can promise anything. That's the nature of corporate acquisitions. Promises are made. We'll invest in the business. We'll grow the brands. We'll maintain operations here. But promises are cheap, and when the next recession hits, When the next cost-cutting initiative comes, those promises evaporate like morning dew. For Mars and Ferrero, this is a beginning. They're excited. They see synergies. They see growth opportunities. They see growth opportunities. They see global expansion, Nutella-flavored Pop-Tarts, M&M's Pringles, brand collaborations that make marketing teams salivate. But for the Kellogg Company, the actual entity Will Keith Kellogg founded, this is the end. Complete, absolute, final. The company that survived the Great Depression couldn't survive the modern breakfast. The company that outlasted 2 world wars couldn't outlast Greek yogurt and protein bars. In a way, it's almost poetic. Will Keith Kellogg built his empire by recognizing that American breakfast habits were changing in 1906. He capitalized on that change. He wrote it to fortune. 119 years later, American breakfast habits changed again, and this time, Kellogg was on the wrong side of history. Walk through Battle Creek, Michigan today, and you can still see the factory. Still see the headquarters building. The Kellogg name is everywhere. On street signs, on buildings, on the community center and the airport. The town's identity is inseparable from the company that made it famous. But if you look closely, you'll notice something. The pride is gone, replaced by uncertainty. Everyone knows what happened. The company split. Both pieces sold. The empire ended. What comes next? Nobody knows. The story of Kellogg's rise and fall teaches us lessons about business that apply far beyond cereal. These aren't numbered. They're embedded in the story itself, but they're worth stating clearly. Market dominance is temporary. Kellogg controlled 43% of the American cereal market in 1976. 43%. That kind of market share feels permanent when you have it. It feels like a fortress. Unassailable, eternal, but consumer preferences shift. Competitors adapt. New categories emerge. What felt permanent in 1976 was gone by 2015. 40 years. That's all it took to go from fortress to also-ran. Diversification is not strategy. When Kellogg's core cereal business started declining, they panicked. They bought Keebler for cookies and crackers. Morningstar Farms for plant-based foods, Pringles for potato chips. Each acquisition made sense in isolation. Together, they created a conglomerate with no clear identity, no focus, no expertise. They tried to be everything. They ended up being nothing special. Labor relationships matter. The 2021 strike revealed something critical. When a company treats its workers as disposable costs rather than valuable partners, it loses something essential. Trust. Loyalty. The willingness to go the extra mile. Kellogg made record profits while forcing workers to do 16-hour shifts for months without a day off. Then they tried to make the 2-tier wage system permanent. The strike was inevitable. The damage to reputation was permanent. Cultural relevance is priceless. Kellogg built its empire on cultural dominance. Tony the Tiger wasn't just a mascot, he was part of American childhood. Saturday morning cartoons weren't just entertainment. They were the pipeline from brand to consumer. When that cultural ecosystem collapsed, Kellogg didn't adapt fast enough. They kept buying TV ads when consumers had moved to digital. They kept using mascots that younger generations didn't recognize. Cultural irrelevance is a death sentence. No amount of marketing spend can fix it. The numbers tell the final story. Will Keith Kellogg founded his company in 1906. It dominated American breakfast for 70 years. Peak market share in 1976, 43%. By 2015, it had fallen below 30%. In 2023, after 117 years, the company split itself into pieces. In 2025, both pieces were sold. W.K. Kellogg Co. to Ferrero for $3.1 billion. Kellanova to Mars for $36 billion. What's left is brands without soul. Factories without identity. A signature on a box that represents nothing except nostalgia for an empire that no longer exists. Will Keith Kellogg died in 1951, believing his company would last forever. He was wrong. Nothing lasts forever. Not even breakfast.